You've been taught to pay the minimums your entire life. And that's why you're stuck in debt up to your eyeballs. Today, we're going to break down how you really pay debt off and how that it's simple to use this strategy in order to get any debt paid off as fast as possible. Listen, it doesn't matter if it's a mortgage, a student loan, a car loan, any loan. This is really how you're supposed to pay the debt off. And it's not a debt snowball. It's not the debt avalanche. It's something you've probably heard time and time again, but we're going to get into it deeper right now. Watch this. Okay, so any loan that you have here, in this case, it is a car loan, okay? We are going to first recognize what we have. So let's go ahead and do it and give you a quick overview before we eliminate this loan very fast, okay? For 6 years, $65,000 at 6%, that's going to equal $1,077 per month, okay? Now, this is how the $1,077 per month is divided. Absolutely, it is divided, okay? Interest, $325, okay, goes towards interest. Of the $1,077, only $752 goes towards the principal. At the end of 12 months, you're looking at $283 going towards the interest and $794 going towards the principal. So that is a little better, but remember, the cost of the borrowing, which is interest, is that you are going to have to pay the bank something. But we want that to be as little as possible so that we can get out of this loan as fast as possible. Does that make sense? Now, remember what you do when you have multiple loans. You've got to be organized, all right? This is how you do it. You want to run each and every one of your loans, not through the debt snowball, not through the debt avalanche. Okay, we do have something a little better. If you want to do those other methods, no judgment there. But we have a method that you can actually see, all right? $65,000, the loan balance, divide that by the minimum monthly payment, which in this case is $1,077. What is that going to equal? Well, that's going to equal a number, right? It's going to be 0 to 100 and above. That means we're going to divide the danger zone, the caution zone, and the freedom zone. Now, within 51 to 99, this is what this particular loan falls between, 51 to 99. Remember what that's called. Do you remember what that's called? That's called the caution zone, okay? So when you are in this zone, that means you want to either restructure, you want to ask for a lower interest rate. If it's another loan, a line of credit, you want to say, hey, how can I get more cash flow from this? All right. So it's not as bad as an inefficient loan. Okay. Inefficient loans, 0 to 50, you want to pay those off very quickly, okay? And then you want to go, okay, I have no more danger zone loans. Now I'm going to get rid of my caution zone loans. And then if you want to get rid of your freedom zone loans as well, okay? Usually mortgages fall between the freedom zone range, okay? Now, this is why it's taking you 6 years to pay off the $65,000. But you know what? We don't want to take 6 years anymore, right? We know it's because they're dividing our money. Have you ever heard of the concept divide and conquer? We don't want to be conquered. So what can we do in order to pay this loan off much faster than the 6 years? Because you know what we're after on any loan that we are paying off? We're not just after the payment, right? We're not just after the payoff so that we can brag to our friends and family. No, we are after this beautiful number right here so that we can turn this minimum monthly payment into cash flow. Let's see how to do it. Now, before I want to get into this banking tool called the line of credit, all right? It's not a loan. It's not another debt. No, it's not. It's going to fundamentally change how you're paying the interest. Because, see, over here it's amortized, meaning it doesn't matter what you do to this principal. Each and every month, you have to pay the $1,077 a month. Where on this side, the minimum monthly payment, when you decrease that balance, it changes each and every month. That's right. And so what you're doing is you're fundamentally exchanging the amortized interest, okay, for simple interest. Folks, the banks are making money off of interest, all right? So it's time for you to gain in cash flow off of changing the interest, all right? Let's go from the interest going out of our favor to the interest going into our favor, and we're gonna share with you how we do that right now. So let's say you didn't want to deploy the $10,000, all right? You don't have to, all right? You do not have to deploy the $10,000, the $5,000, however much your line of credit holds, all right? Listen, please don't get caught up in the numbers. Get caught up in the principle of what we're doing here, all right? So let's say you just wanted to deploy this $650 towards that principal each and every month. Now, what would that look like? Because that line of credit, it's going to have some interest dollars attached to it now, right? You've got to balance each and every month, right, of $650. And oh, by the way, let's just say you're working with a cash flow of $1,000. Again, don't get caught up in the numbers. Get caught up in the principle of what we're doing here. So you've got a cash flow of $1,000. It doesn't matter if you make $3,000 a month. It doesn't matter if you make $10,000 a month. The cash flow is what matters here, okay? Then let's say that's $650 going towards that principal payment each and every month. What is that going to look like? And how are we going to pay this line of credit off? I'm glad you asked. Let's show you. All right, so here we have a comparison of the traditional banking way of doing things and how your payment is split up versus the velocity banking way of doing things over here. Now, I've just got to let you know, the main goal here is to make sure that as much of that $65,000 is transferred, okay, towards simple interest as possible. So if you have a HELOC, right, that's at 7% or 8% simple credit or simple interest, it's so much better to go ahead and swallow up the $65,000 so that $1,077 comes towards you, okay? Do you still owe? Yes, but at least now it's in your control. That is the name of the game, okay? So if you can deploy the 10,000, if you can deploy the 12,000 as much as possible to taking care of that principle, that's what you need to do. But if you're averse to that and you only want to deploy the $650 extra each month, this is what it's going to look like. It still works in your favor, okay? The interest, yeah, the first month, okay, it is going towards the bank, $325, but what's this? Now that we have an extra $652 or $650 deployed towards the principal, look how much is going towards the principal. $1,402, but that's nothing. Let's look at the 12th month when we do this. And remember, you can do this in mortgages, you can do this in student loans, any loans if you're having trouble. We even have a velocity banking wizard that'll help you, okay? It's in the description link below. $245, right, goes towards the interest. This is the 12th month. And $1,482 goes towards the principal. Now, how long do you think as you're paying this from your line of credit? How long do you think until you're done with this loan? Let's get back to that. CJ, how are we going to pay off the line of credit? Because if we're using it each and every month, how are we paying it off? Well, remember when I told you that your cash flow was $1,000. Now, what happens, okay, if your balance is $650, and your cash flow is $1,000, what happens when you pay more than your minimum monthly payment and you're within the grace period? Is there any interest charged? Is there any interest charged? If you're within the grace period, you pay it off within that grace period each and every month, how much interest is charged? Let me give you a hint. That's why it's called a grace period. They're giving you some grace before they hit you with that interest, okay? 0% if you're within that grace period. On many lines of credit, it's between the 21 to 25 days. But even if there is interest, even if there's cash advance fees, you're going to see how much you're going to be saving by using your line of credit. All right. So let's go ahead and take that, right? And that $650, because you are using your line of credit the smart way, and you're paying over the minimum monthly payment because it's still in your control, okay? Let's say you pay the $1,000, right, towards that line of credit. You still control the full $1,000, okay? Name a bill that you can pay and still take money out of. So is the line of credit a debt? Is the line of credit a bill? But that's how they want you to think, so that you can continue to pay the minimum monthly payment. But as long as you're using more than the $650, you're deploying that towards your line of credit, you're going to continue, right, to do what? You're paying that line of credit off every month. Every month you're paying it off so that you can deploy it again and again and again. How many months do you need to do that before you're done with this? Now, remember here, it's 72. They want you paying $1,077 a month for 72 months. That's got to be over $70,000. However, when you're doing it this way, let's see how much you save and how much interest you're paying out. You know, out of all the years that we have on the planet, I want you to spend your best years full of cash flow. This is how the traditional banking area works. Do you see this number right here? 0. That's how much you're saving in interest if you do things the bank's way. However, and the reason why is because if you do things the bank's way, you're going to be paying in interest, okay, in interest, $12,561 doing it the traditional banking way versus doing it the velocity banking way with that extra payment coming from your line of credit, which you're paying off within that grace period so that you don't have any interest from your line of credit. How much would you be saving? $5,370. And I want you to know something. When they say, make your money work for you, this is what they're talking about. You don't have to get a second job. You don't have to eat beans and rice. You don't have to do any of that. Okay? Because the simple truth is, it's with money that you already control. This $1,000 or $500 or $300 in cash flow, it doesn't matter. Okay? You control it. You're just moving it the correct way. And after 3.5 years, 3.5 years, you are done with one of the most cash flow sucking loans that you could ever get, and it's the car loan. Now, this one, not as much as the others, but 3.5 years. So what does that mean? That means you've got 2.5 years to amass $1,077 a month. Folks, you can retire in 3 to 5 years. It doesn't matter your age, with $1,077 a month. Would you like to let me show you? Listen, the description link is below. It's entitled Passive Income. Passive income. I want you out of the debt mindset and I want you into equity acceleration, financial freedom accelerant. Okay, that's what these banking tools are. And you don't have to have a line of credit. You just got to know how to financially allocate strategically and tactically. If you need more assistance in building up your cash flow and eliminating your debt, you need to check out this video right here, and we'll see you in more videos. God bless you, and you have a great day.